my dining room, I just saw. Well, I didn't just see it. I saw it last night. I saw a fantastic documentary on the neighborhood of Kensington, and not just the drug issue, but the whole history of Kensington, and the story of the K&A gang, and how the gentrification of Kensington Avenue is happening, the drug issue in Kensington, what types of drugs are being sold, why these drugs are so horrible, and I found that you know what, I gotta take this phone call. I gotta take this phone call. Hold on a second. Hello, what's going on, Gary Brown? I've been good, buddy. How you doing? I am. I'm filming a movie every day, buddy. You know me. That's what I. That's what I do for work. You know, I make videos for work. All right, what we got? What we got? Talk to me. What we got going on for Royal Rumble? Logan Paul versus who? Okay, good. That means Kevin Owens is winning. All right, let's go. Who else? Kevin Owens is my favorite. I hate Logan Paul. He's one of my coworkers. He works at YouTube like I do. Who? Okay, that's a lot of people. Okay, oh, that's right. They're gonna have a women's battle royal too. Oh my god. Possibly The Rock, huh? Yeah, I saw The Rock came out. He talked trash. He sure did. He sure did. Rock bottom Ginger Mahal. Okay, 17 days. Get the numbers ready. They're ready, brother. Don't you worry. Oh, I don't know. I got to figure out where we're going to watch it. I got to figure out where we're going to watch it. We might do something real fun for Royal Rumble. I don't know. I'll have to let you know. We'll probably for right now. Let's say my house, but we might watch it at a parking lot. We might watch it at a party. It might be something big. I gotta talk to some people. I will let you know before 16 days. That's the kind of friend I am. I will let you know before that. I promise. Okay. All right. Well, let me let you go because I'm in the middle of talking about I'm in the middle of working right now. All right. I'll talk to you later. See ya. Bye bye. It's my friend Gary Brown. Um, he has to call me after every um, wrestling show and let me know what's happening for the pay per view we're about to watch. So anyway, there's this. I'm sure most of you are familiar of the YouTube channel Channel Five. I don't know. I mean, he has many viral clips. He is it's a guy named Andrew Callahan. I didn't notice, but he's from Philadelphia, and you might have seen that he had a movie about the last election and how like the media responded to it, making everything kind of like what I was saying yesterday, how politics are sports now, and so anyway, he makes these incredible documentaries, and if you got to check out Channel Five YouTube, and he made this video yesterday that he put out. It's called Philly Streets, and it's about an hour long, and it is the greatest documentary to tell the story of Kensington. It talks about um, the drugs that they're using, and I'm going to tell you from my own personal experience of going down there, one of the drugs that people were using is horse tranquilizer, and I kid you not, in the last 2 years, I've noticed such a huge increase of amputees on Kensington Ave and people in wheelchairs on Kensington Ave in the last 2 years. I've noticed it, and I've noticed that there's. I always talk about wounds and bandages, and I just noticed that it went from, like, at the beginning of the pandemic, you might see somebody with, like, an infected arm, or their foot might look bad, or like maybe someone's legs real blown up because it has an infection in it. And that would be rare. Like, you would see. I remember one time I was taking the L home back in when I was working at Boyd's in 2019. And I was taking the L home. It was me, and I worked with this lady named Kat. And Kat, me and her would take the L to Bridge and Pratt. And I remember one time we were on the L, and it was like 2019, and there was a dude who was sitting on the L, and his arm stunk. Like, you could smell his arm. And it was so rare to see somebody's arm in that kind of condition. I remember me and Kat were like, yo, you need to go to the hospital today, brother. Like, you got to get that looked at. And he had the hospital bracelet on his arm. You remember he showed us that. He just got out. He had the hospital socks on. And like, that was like the first time I remember seeing an arm that was like, holy shit, that's bad. And what I always thought it was, and I'm very ignorant to the whole trank game. I always thought it was people shooting up with dirty needles, and they would get their arm infected, and and there was like maybe like a crazy infection going around, and that or like you have a little bit of gangrene or something going on. It turns out this drug that the people are shooting up with is called trank, and it's made for horses, so it's not meant for human consumption, and it's eating away at the flesh. It's just, but like, it doesn't even seem like heroin's a thing anymore down there. It's all fentanyl and trank, and I really think that everybody needs to see that documentary that he made. He touched whenever he even talked about YouTubers going down to Kensington and making videos about, like, Kensington stuff. And he talked about that for a while because he was down there. He's like, is it right for me to even make a video down there? And I got it. I think the video he made down there was so important. And he was talking to not only the people who take the drugs, but the people who sell the drugs. The people, it seemed to me, these people are the people who run the drug game down in Kensington. And he has to be one of the greatest reporters. This guy, Andrew Callahan's one of the greatest reporters, documentarians in our lifetime. The guy has balls of steel. And I think that's what's great about him. Is there was this one scene in the movie where he was talking to the lead guy who deals the trank, and it has a chemical name, but anyway, so he was talking to the guy who sells the horse stuff, and they were talking, and then he was like, "What do you spend your money on? Like, what do you spend the money you make on selling these drugs?" And he was like, "Oh, cars, my bitches." And he was like, "Oh, where do you go eat?" And they were talking about like restaurants and like that. That he humanizes people who you watch the guy being interviewed, the guy who's selling the horse, and he even talks about the psychological, um, uh, like how people who deal drugs, how they can talk themselves into it because like they see like if they're going to sell the drugs, at least they know who they're selling them to. They can kind of control it. They feel like they're doing good. When if they weren't selling drugs, other people would sell drugs, and it might get in the wrong hands. Like like it was a really interesting documentary. Uh, uh, I had no idea about it sounds like there's like cartels involved, and they also go into the homicides of Philadelphia, and he they go into like if in the city of Philadelphia the last 3 years. Not last year we had a decline, but the 2 years prior to that, our homicides were through the roof. I think we were almost around 600 for a year back in 2022. Or one of those years. No, it's funny. After the pandemic, I don't remember what time was. So it was after the pandemic. There was like 600 murders, and it sounds like that documentary. What it said was a lot of the murders were hits put out by cartels, and what they would say is, and pretty much what they were talking about is there's two forms of this drink, and there's like a liquid form that veterinarians use, and there's a powder form that they're making over in China. Now, the one that the vets use, the cartel is involved in dealing that out, and the powder stuff from Asia. Um, if you get caught dealing that stuff, the cartel dealers might come get it. It's a lot. You know, it's funny. It's scary down there, right? Like it's a little scary down there. I there's another guy who makes documentaries. His name is I love him. Steven, no, not Steven. Louis Theroux. And Louis Theroux made a video in North Philly where he was talking to drug dealers or something like that. He was in North Philly. I don't know. I forget what he was doing. He was talking to people on the corner. And he sat there and he had a helmet and a bulletproof vest on. And I always kind of laughed at that. Like that's a bit of an overreaction. But saying that, the chances of getting hit by a stray bullet in certain neighborhoods is definitely higher than. I mean, actually, not even certain neighborhoods. It can happen anywhere in the city. Doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in. But then, so then another thing he touches on the documentary is how, and this is something when on my last video I made in Kensington, I made a video when the new mayor was sworn in. I go down there. She says she's going to make a difference in 100 days. So I went down there on day one just to document what's going on. And when I was filming that video, and sometimes I edit stuff out because sometimes there'll be a car behind me and they'll have music blasting so loud that I can't even use the content. But I remember I was talking about how I used to hang at this bar, which is now a really fancy Mexican restaurant at Kensington and Somerset. And it used to be a bar, and I would go there back around 2013, 2012. I would go there, I knew the bartender, and I would hang out there. And she was a girl, she was a woman, and sometimes, if she didn't have one of her regulars in there where she didn't know, she would hit me up and say, "Yeah, what are you doing? I'm by myself. Come over and I'll give you free beer." So I would just sit there and kind of be like a pretend security guard. Nothing ever happened. Everything in that bar. It was kind of, it was interesting. I would say it was an interesting. I wish I was YouTubing then, but I wasn't. And but I remember back in 2012, most of the chaos and anarchy with the people, um, like nodding out and doing drugs, they were either on the railroad tracks at Kensington and Lehigh, or they were somewhere around Kensington and Somerset. And um, all the people who lived around that area, they moved. And it seems to me like developers have been taking advantage of people leaving, and they're selling, they're getting these properties at a cheap rate, and now they're selling them, and the properties are going for a lot of money. And there's some type of conspiracy that politicians are letting the crime happen, but what they're doing is they're making it gradually move down Kensington Avenue. And the thing is, like, so it was a shit show at Kensington and Somerset, um, a decade ago, and not and but nothing like it's like today. It was bad, but it wasn't too bad. Also, most of the drug addicts were doing the drugs on the railroad. And then one of the things that happened after the people taking their drugs on the railroad was Dr. Oz had a TV show. And it was something about how I saw the gates of hell in Kensington. You can look it up. And after Dr. Oz made that TV show on the railroad tracks in Kensington, city officials made Conrail Railroad, like, they're like, listen, you got to take care of your space a little bit better. So what they do is they fenced everything in, and they kicked all the drug addicts out. And now they're living on the streets on Kensington and Somerset. And now then they were McPherson Square. And now they're at Kensington and Clearfield, and Kensington and Allegheny. But after you get to Kensington and Allegheny, you go maybe a block or two, and then it's kind of gone. It's all gone. You get little drips and drabs, but it's kind of gone. And it's kind of contained into one area. And that he talks about how the police turned a blind eye, and the police have been turning a blind eye in Kensington for, it seems, to be 30 years, because there was a lot of, apparently meth was huge in Kensington in the 90s. I didn't notice. But I know back in the day when I was going to grade school at Conwell, which is at Kensington and Clearfield, or 2 blocks away from Kensington and Clearfield, there was a diner on Kensington and Allegheny called Kellis's. And I remember, I think we used to go there when I was a kid. It was just a diner. It was nothing special. In the 90s, it started, like, biker gangs and shit started hanging out there. So, like, there was like a thing like, oh, biker gangs are in Kensington. I remember that, like, being a gossipy thing going about town. This is before time of the internet, so it was just something you would hear at, like, family parties, or if you go to block parties, you would hear people talk about that stuff. But yeah, I remember, like they say Kensington's been bad for 40. Now, here's something too. I'm 46 years old. And my parents, their very first apartment they had, now they were 2 teenagers. I don't even know how the hell they got an apartment, but they got an apartment. It was on Grandsback Street in Kensington. And the house above, or the apartment above us, was drug dealers. There was drug dealers living above us. Um, and that's in the 70s. So I don't know what they were selling, Quaaludes or whatever. But I remember my mom telling me stories about the drug dealers living above us in the 70s. So Kensington's always kind of had a little bit of a drug issue, but nothing like it is today. And I just really I think everybody needs to watch this documentary. Yeah, Four Sons Pizza. I grew up when I was born. I lived on. Oh, why am I having a brain fart? I just said Grants back. I lived on Willard Street for a little bit, and I lived on. Oh my God. Oh, I forget. Where can I watch the documentary? It's Channel 5. Just type in Channel 5 Philly Streets. It's an hour-long documentary. And like another thing he talked about how um, a lot of YouTubers make money off of Kensington Ave. And there was a time back in like 3 years ago, I was doing a lot of Kensington stuff. And I kind of lost my mind doing it because it's such a miserable place. So I made the choice of what I'm going to do in Kensington is my thing is I'm going to try to hold the politicians accountable. And whenever I see politicians on the street, um, I do ask them about Kensington. There's footage of it. I yelled at the mayor, the last mayor. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing about Kensington? But there are people who just drive down in their car, and they'll go in slow motion and they'll just shoot on the people. I try not to do that. I don't want to really. I know there are people that are down there, like but um uh I don't know of any other YouTuber going down to Kensington who used to live there. I don't know. So I don't uh I really don't see many. Whenever I go down there, I never see anybody down there YouTubing except for Frank from Morals Over Money, and he does a lot of good. There are YouTubers that do good stuff down there. There's Frank gives out clothes, and I mean, the only one I really watch is, and I don't even really watch him. The only one I ever really see is Frank from Morals Over Money. I heard he got robbed, and I don't know if he's still going. I'm sure he's still going down there, but I heard he got robbed. That's horrible. Hey, how you doing? Huh? You know what's funny? In Northern Liberties in the '90s, I had a gun pulled on me, and I guess it was kind of this fucked up around there. I never really paid attention. When you're a kid, you're not really paying attention to shit. But I would take the L all the time, and I would always get off at Kensington and Somerset, because first off, there was a deli that would serve me when I was underage, so I would go there all the time, and I never felt really like there. Sometimes when I get down there, I do get a little. Sometimes there's a scary feeling that comes over me, like a spidey sense, like I have to be. But sometimes but then there's other times I go down there and I'm just feeding the chickens, and I just pay attention to that, and I don't give a shit. Nobody's gonna bother you if you're feeding fucking chickens. I don't care. And when I've been feeding the chickens, I had people on drugs and people who sell drugs asked me what I was doing. And I said, oh, I come down here and feed the chickens. And they say, oh, that's nice. Both people had nice responses to it. So yeah, what happens? So, and then they were talking about how there have been some significant drug busts in Philadelphia the last few years. There really have been. I can't see, but the way I see it, like I know there was like somebody who ran like 20 corners. There was like two guys. They got caught. But once those two guys go, those 20 corners are up for grab, and there's going to be somebody else selling stuff on it. The brothers who sell all the horse tranquilizer, they said they sell about 100,000 bags on a block, and they sell in 15 blocks. I don't understand how that's possible. I don't think that's possible. I might have gotten those numbers wrong. Because how is anybody getting anything done in the city? Is everybody doing it? And another thing I've noticed, back in the day, you would see maybe, there would be piles on a step. There would be a step near Kensington and Allegheny, or some type of hospital clinic used to be something. And now it's just like a ramp, and people use those steps to like sleep on, lean on, shoot up on, whatever. You used to see people lean over there, and then maybe if you walk down the street, you see 2 or 3 people passed out. But the shit they're taking today is supposed to sedate horses. So they're all passing out. And another thing that happens down there is you get your pockets run. And it's something, if I ever see it, I try to stop it. Like, if you see somebody going through somebody's pockets, you just go, yeah, what are you doing? I think there's a video of it. There was a guy passed out, and it was near Kensington and Somerset. Guy was passed out, and I think I was making a video about Rocky's house for a Rocky video I was making. And I was driving down the street, and I just saw the dude was passed out, and the guy was going through his pockets. And the guy shouldn't be passed out on the street, but he shouldn't have it. It's just, you just think about, what if you were in that situation? You wouldn't want somebody just to, you pass out. I don't know. It's fucking horrible. It's fucking horrible. And I really I hope the mayor watches it. I hope the fucking last mayor watches. I hope Jim Kenney watches it, because he's a pile of shit, and he can see what happened. And even the people in the video, and they're not. He interviews people who just live in Kensington. He talks to this one guy who's a dog breeder, and he talks to him. And the cool thing is about the guy who's just the dog breeder, he kind of looks out for the addicts. He talks about how he carries Narcan with him. And he gives CPR if he has to, and he saw somebody running their pockets and he yelled at them. And he talks about how it's cops don't. It's for some reason it's legal in the Kensington corridor. That's what they call it, the Kensington corridor. Why is it legal there? I don't know, but it is. The chickens, I was down there when the mayor was going. When it was the mayor's first day, I drove down. I made that little video. I just didn't know I didn't know, because of the new mayor, I didn't know what the streets were going to be like. So I didn't want to go out. Like, it's weird. Like, I didn't know what to expect. So because I didn't know what to expect, I didn't want to get out of the car. I saw the chickens They're in the bookstore where the old dirty bookstore was. They're living in that lot. There was two of them. Um, I don't fucking know, man. Mm. Yeah, well, the that's a great thing that he talks about in the documentary is from Lehigh Avenue up, it's gentrified. You can see the new construction, and you can see like you got um, uh, upper middle class white people living back in the neighborhood, and business professionals who want to take the L into work, which I don't think that's true. Who the fuck wants to take the L into work? But yeah, they all up and down. There was just an article in Philadelphia Magazine. If you take the L from Bridge and Pratt to Kensington, like to Gerard Ave, it would be a stop. You would be, if you really pay attention to it. There's so much new construction being built or was built in the last decade, and what I will say about the new construction is I have a lot of friends who live in Fishtown, and my one friend has a barbecue every summer, and there's always a good half hour where we talk about how the construction's falling off. But I knew somebody who was taking the L one time, and one of the gray panelings they had on the side of a new building just blew off in the wind. Um, so that new construction's going to be shit. I not all of it, but I'm sure some of it is, and it caused a lot of chaos getting all that new stuff built. A lot of people who've been in the neighborhood for like 80 years, they have these uh, shitty developers who um, build these new properties, and what they'll do is they'll start digging a foundation on a vacant lot, and they don't support the house that's been sitting there for 80 years without a house next to it, and the fucking house crumbles, and the 90-year-old woman who lives in that house, she was at the supermarket, she lives, but when she gets home she sees her house that crumbled. She has a heart attack and died. That's a true story. These developers and these politicians who let all this happen, I don't know. I gotta pay attention to who the city council person is now, because the last city council person in the neighborhood of Kensington was this lady Maria Sanchez, Maria Quiniano Sanchez, something like that, Maria Sanchez, and this is what I was making. Is during the pandemic I was going. No. During the pandemic I didn't go down Kensington whatsoever. When the pandemic, when things started opening up, I went down to Kensington, and there is right across the street from my old grade school is this parking lot, and in the parking lot there was this gigantic encampment of homeless people who do drugs, right? They're not just homeless people. They're homeless people who do drugs. There are also homeless people who don't do drugs. Most of those people don't live in Kensington. We do have other types of homeless people in Center City and other neighborhoods. But the ones who usually live in Kensington have a drug problem. And mental illness. There's definitely a mental illness thing. Uh, and fuck, I forgot where I was going. Oh, I was. No. Channel 5. He no. It was cool because like he talked about how Kensington had like a lot of factories back in the day, and in the 30s and in the 50s they had two The Depression era hurt Kensington. A lot of factories closed down. In the 50s, that a lot of more factories closed down. So a lot of the people who lived in Kensington in the 50s moved up to Langhorne. And he talks about how the segregation of the GI Bill, um, because of the segregation of the GI Bill, and certain black people couldn't get the GI Bill, or they weren't allowed to live in certain areas. The whole town of Langhorne was just a white town. So a lot of the people from Kensington and Fishtown and all those areas, they moved to Langhorne, or a lot of people moved to Jersey. The suburbs became a thing, and actually in the 40s and the 50s, the area around Independence Hall, Society Hill, that was the neighborhood full of poor people. That was a neighborhood full of poor people, and the houses were falling apart. And the city controller at that time was a guy named Edmund Bacon. He's Kevin Bacon's father, the actor. Um, he had an idea to gentrify the old houses, and like to improve that area, to up the property values, to get the poor people out. And where did they go? They went to neighborhoods like Northern Liberties, and in the 90s they went to Kensington. So my family, my grandmother lived in Kensington up until like 1991, 1992. And she moved to the Northeast. She got an apartment. She was an older woman. She had a house. She sold her house. I think she sold it for like $10,000. And she got a little apartment in Northeast Philadelphia. And she lived about 20 years after she left Kensington. Every so often, I do go down the block she used to live on in Kensington. And I'm happy to report that block is still kind of a nice block. I did get told by one of the neighbors, some of the people who used to live with my grandmother still live on that block. And I was told by one of the neighbors, like, oh, it's nice to see you, but you better get out of here. You're going to get shot. And it's always nice to see friends. Oh, I don't know. I used to have friends in gangs, and um I used to have, I don't know. I'm not really in the loop with biker gangs. Bristol is where the bikers live. Uh, uh, the majority of the ones I know live in Jersey. Uh, I don't talk to them too much. I always felt on edge when I was friends with some guys who were in a biker gang, and they were my friends, so I would go hang out with them. But then, like, I don't know, I wasn't wearing a vest. I felt like a pussy getting on my car. Um, yeah. So anyway, I guess that's the whole point of this. My little stream here is I made a post on my Facebook page saying, if you want to watch a documentary, you got to watch this Channel 5 documentary. It's the best. No other. Nobody does it that good. Nobody explains it that good. Nobody does the whole history of Kensington. Nobody does. He didn't talk about Larry Fine and Babe Ruth. He didn't talk about those good stories. He didn't talk about the Rackert spot on Kensington Ave. Um, uh, Although I've heard some stories about the record spot on Kensington Ave. I don't know if I want to go into them, but there's some interesting stories. Um, well, I had a friend who is in the real estate game, and this is about 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, you could buy a house at Kensington and Somerset. I'm not even exaggerating. $8,000, $10,000. That's when all the developers were buying all those properties. $8,000, $10,000, $20,000. You know, you can buy a house at Kensington now. A real bad fixer upper is going to cost you. I think the lowest I've seen is $85,000, right? I think I saw one for 70, and I thought about buying it for my daughter. Because I don't think I'll ever see a house that cheap again. And it's right off of Kensington and Allegheny. But the houses north of Kensington and Lehigh, they're going for $300,000. It's crazy. Yeah. It just seems like the people you got to buy property as soon as you can. That's the only way you can survive in this country is you have to buy a house. I mean, no matter where you are in life, when you're instead of getting a student loan, I don't know, buy a house. It's the only thing that can, it's the only thing that as long as you got a house, you're okay. You know, an apartment. I had a lady living next door to me. She had she was renting a house, paid her rent on time every week, every month. She paid her rent on time, kept the house super clean, and somebody offered the person who owned that property. Somebody offered them to double the rent. They said, "Let me buy this house off you. I'll renovate it," and then they doubled the rent of what the lady was paying before. They kicked that woman out of her house. The woman who her whole life was her children, they were her kids, and her whole life were her kids, and within 60 days she was homeless and she didn't have custody of her children no more because of a landlord. Just because a landlord wanted to sell the house. Horrible. Affordable housing is not a thing in Philadelphia. I don't think affordable housing is a thing anywhere, to tell you the truth. No, moving to Alaska is. I love Nomestead in Alaska, but I see his thermostat occasionally on Instagram, and it says negative 16 degrees. I think he posted something today that there's maybe a few hours of sunlight. No, moving to Alaska is not the answer for everybody. I would if I lived in Alaska, I would lose my mind. Um, but I was watching something about there was an actor in California. I think it was Ian Ziering from 90210, and he was riding his car, and they had like a bunch of dirt bike and ATV jerk offs drove real close to his car, And he got out of his car and he was like, "Hey, what's the matter, you?" I don't know if he talked like that. And then the motorcycle gang, like they got ready to put up the Dukes, and there was like a little tussle and they broke it up. And it does seem like jerk off ATV bikers and quads, like that's a thing going on all around the country. And I don't know when that, why is that okay? Like, it doesn't bother me that much. It really doesn't. Like, there was one time I was at a parade and the bikers drove through the parade. That was kind of bad. But I'm entertained by people doing wheelies. I just say that. I mean, it bothers other people more than it bothers me. And I I just don't understand. Like, it just seems like the police gave up when pursuing them a while ago, and I don't know. It's weird. We'll see how things are going. But I listened to this podcast from Washington D.C. called the Mike O'Mara Show. I've been listening to it for the past few weeks, and I listened to it, and they were talking about the same issue because they run like a podcast studio, and they have the same issue with jerk off motorcycle and quad things. So it's a thing happening across all the cities. It's weird. Oh wow, you played Kellis's. Did you were you the singer of Kensington Girls? Did you sell 45s at the record spot? Yeah, that broken window theory. Um, where did I hear that before? There was this great debate in Philadelphia. This is when I remember. Not in Philadelphia, in Bridesburg. There was this big debate about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. There's a cemetery in my neighborhood, and the cemetery takes up, I shit you not, 8 blocks. It's 8 blocks wide, and it's a big portion of a block. So, um, if you walk halfway through the street, there's a driveway, and that's supposed to be for cars who are going to the cemetery that they could pull in and pay respects. But a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this, they'll use the driveway as a shortcut, kind of like a cut through. There's usually no traffic on there. You just walk. There's no other dogs or people, and you walk through there. And that's the first time I heard the broken window theory. Somebody was saying you can't walk through the cemetery with your dog. Um, and I was saying, okay, I kind of I get what you're saying, but I also think the cemetery should close the gates at 5 o'clock at night. That would stop a lot of it because the cemetery never closes its gates. And also, what's the difference from a car driving over something and a dog and a person walking on it? And somebody would say, "Well, I don't want anybody shitting on my aunt's grave or shitting on my mom's grave." And whenever I walk my dogs in the cemetery, I just keep them on the street. Usually, the only reason I walk my dogs is to keep their nails low. That's the main reason why I walk my dogs. Especially Rick the puppy, he has crazy anxiety, so I never walk him on grass. I try to just keep him on pavement because his nails grow like Wolverine, man. And he has this crazy anxiety. If he's not in the room with me and Cheryl, he just scratches his head. He's insane. Um, so anyway, that's the first. I remember I hearing the broken window theory, and I looked into it, and I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I remember seeing there was an I listened to a podcast about the broken window theory, and it was also talking about um, the stop and frisk laws of New York, and um, um, it's a touchy subject because you get maybe you get people talking about racism or I like cops to arrest people when they see some. I don't want cops to make a judgment call. Not if I don't want a cop making a judgment call on me, I don't want them making a judgment call on anyone. But if a cop sees a crime, I want them to stop it. You know what I'm saying? I also don't. I hate being policed by cameras. It drives me nuts how much Philadelphia polices the citizens who drive with license plates and pay insurance and try to do everything right. But if you make a right hand turn on a yellow light and a truck gets in your way, you got to stop, and then you get a red light camera ticket for $100. Um, I fucking hate that, man. I hate the and now they're adding speeding cameras. We have them on the boulevard, which is one of the busiest streets in the city, and they say this is what they say the good thing is. Well, car accidents are down like 40%. It might be even a higher number, but what they don't tell you is the profit we made is like over $1 million. And now they're going to add the traffic cameras on Kelly Drive. And they just lowered the speed limit on Kelly Drive. For the longest time, the speed limit on Kelly Drive was 35 miles an hour, and nobody ever followed it. Most people usually do 40 to 50 on Kelly Drive. And now they lowered the speed limit to 25, and these dirty bastards, they're putting in the cameras. They're putting in the cameras to watch your speed. Um, it's I remember one time I got yelled at by a cop for turning on a light, on like a yellow light, and then after I turned, there was like a dirt bike that rode right by me, and I was like, you know, why aren't you going after him? Why are you stopping me? You know. Yeah, I think that's what they were saying. Is it was Rudy Giuliani who started the broken window theory. Uh, that gnomes that I say that all the fucking time. I'm like I'm pretty sure there's something in the Constitution about a cop having to be present, not a Constitution. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like that's the way we were supposed to be policed, um, but it's only for the people who follow the laws. People have all these things now. You put license plates covers on your fucking tag, and they won't recognize you. You know. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's another. I always I want to Washington D. You guys know how much I love history, and I want to spend some time in Washington D.C. But the thing, I overthink it. I just don't want to get a ticket. I don't want to get a speeding ticket. They have red light cameras everywhere, so I just don't go to Washington D.C. But I want to go. Oh, I don't know anything about the mob. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I don't know, Tim. I don't know. I don't. Adam's busy. He's moving. I'm still taking down my Christmas tree. We got lots of things going on. Uh, I you don't think I don't want to make a video with Adam the Woo every day? Of course I do. One, he can go all day like me. He can go and he can go hard and go to lots of places. And two, the best thing about it, after you're done hanging out with him, you just go in separate rooms and you edit. You don't even talk about it. Fucking magical. It's the best friendship in the world. Nah, I don't know anything about the mob. I never heard about the mob. Don't know anything. I once met this gentleman. I tell you, I met this gentleman when I worked at this clothing store. Don't even want to say the name of the clothing store. But I met this gentleman named Joseph Marlino. And he was a gentleman. Don't know much about him. All I know, when I shook his hand, he looked me in my eye and he said, "How do you do, sir?" I said, "I'm doing good. Can I get you a drink or anything you need to be comfortable?" He said, "Give me whatever it was." I came back. Maybe it was a beer. Could have been a soda. Gave him the can. Gave me a tip. I never got tipped. Joey Marlino was a gentleman. And after meeting him, I realized, the mob, that's not a real thing. It definitely doesn't exist. It's made up by Hollywood so they could sell tickets and make movies. And you could say the mob exists, but I know Joey Marlino. He's a gentleman. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about his podcast. I saw him the other day. I'll tell you the truth. I saw him at the Eagles game at the tailgate. Just kept on walking. You don't want to piss him off. There's a possibility you could piss him off. Nope. Keep on walking. I don't want to bother him. Just because he's a nice guy. I don't want to bother nice people who do nice things. That's all. But you will never. One thing, I've made 4,000 videos on YouTube, and one thing you'll never find on my YouTube channel is a video about the Philly mob, because the Philly mob is not a thing. It's just urban legend. That's all. Joey Marlino was at South Philly String Band when they won. Well, how much fun must that have been? Everybody sitting on edge because they don't want to piss off Joey Marlino. Oh, hey, Joey, how are you? Is he still here? Nah, I know. I did meet him when I worked at Boyd's, and he really was a nice guy. I don't think he tipped me. He definitely did eye contact handshake, which took a lot from me because I got a little bit of it's hard to believe this, but I have social anxiety. It's really hard for me to especially in a room of people I don't know, it's really hard for me to be myself. I think that's true for everybody, but I'm even more awkward about it because then I have my what's it called? My anxiety, and I overthink things, and just make things worse. I see his podcast pop up on my YouTube feed every so often. I gotta blow my nose, and I don't. I don't think I don't want to say I've ever watched. Maybe I saw it on the Instagram. Probably saw it on the Instagram. Oh shit. All right. So I guess that's it. I guess we covered it. I highly recommend you watch the Channel 5 documentary. I would say if you watch it, on the comments, right? The Philly captain sent me here, but he doesn't need it. It already has over 1 million views, so he doesn't even need this recommendation. I do think if you want to know more about the Kensington neighborhood and what's going on in there and how it affects everybody in the neighborhood, from the person, oh shit, man, and I'm gonna tell you, let me wrap up with this. A lot of times when I go down to Kensington, people will say to me, "You need to interview some people. You need to interview some people," and I um I don't really talk to many people who are high down there that often. I'll talk to church preachers because I kind of find that interesting that the church preachers are down there, and the church preachers aren't down there to get the people sober, right? This is the part I find interesting. They know those people down there are lost causes and they're going to die. So what they do is they go down there to Kensington and Allegheny and they preach so those people can be saved so they can go to heaven. Not so they can get sober, so they can go to heaven. And I really, it's really. There was one time I saw a preacher. There's a video up on YouTube, and there was a preacher who had a coffin with him at Kensington, at McPherson Square. He had a coffin, and he was preaching, and I was like, so you're telling them like if they don't sober up, they're going to be in the coffin? He goes, I'm telling them before they get in that coffin, they need to say I love Jesus or I believe in Jesus, and I really thought that was. I really thought it was kind of morbid. And then part of me thinks, well, it's like, what's the nicest thing you could do for somebody but to get them in heaven? But it's kind of a tough way of looking at it down there. But there's so many preachers you see down on Kensington and Allegheny, and they just want to save souls, not lives. It's kind of strange because I don't know if souls exist, but we know lives exist. I don't know Richie. Very realistic of them. Yeah, I guess that's how they see life. And me, as a person who's not really religious, right? Like, so I'm not religious. I don't really believe in anything, right? I was raised Catholic, and but from the time I've been 15, I've always had doubts about religion. And the way I look at it now is I don't really think any organized religion is the true religion of God, if there is a God, which I'm not sure there is. Um, but I do know you only get to live one life, and it just seems silly worrying about a soul that we don't know that doesn't exist instead of worrying about the actual human being at the time that they're actually living. That's all. That's all. Just seems weird. Like, I don't know. I don't know if Jesus would be preaching on Kensington Ave. I think Jesus would be giving out food and clothing people. That's just, I don't know. I didn't really have a personal relationship with Jesus. I was an altar boy for many years. Nothing bad happened to me. But I think I don't think Jesus would be preaching to people like that. I think he would be comforting them, not preaching. I know, it's just me. Yeah, yeah. There's a few YouTuber preachers on Kensington Ave, and they just preach, and they stand on Kensington Ave and they preach and they broadcast what they see, and they pray over people. And I got some videos. There's a video I have of, it's the craziest shit I've ever seen on Kensington, and I think it's called 20. If you go to my playlist of my Kensington videos, I think it's the very first one, and it's like 20 minutes in Kensington, something like that. And it was this batshit crazy evangelical preacher who had some type of dancing religion, and they were just dancing in McPherson Square, and they were dancing over the people passed out, and that was the craziest thing I've ever saw in Kensington. That was out of all. I once did see a guy shooting up into his junk, not his package, but the actual manhood, the his actual cock. There's no way this is going to be monetized, so it doesn't matter. But I actually saw a guy. I guess he couldn't find a vein, so he shot it into his. That was last time I was down there. I saw somebody go into the bathroom right on the Ave, like right on the Ave, right? And in daylight, like in the bike lane on Kensington Ave. They used to have, and that's another thing too. If you go back to my channel, one of the very first videos I made on Kensington was they had public restrooms that people could use because they were people that the people were sick of walking in the human waste, and now those bathrooms are gone. Then they came out with this idea to have public hand washing stations. This is before COVID, and then COVID comes, and I made a deal with my mom. I said, listen, I'm not going to do any videos down in Kensington during the COVID stuff. So if you go back to my videos in 2020, I think there's only like 2 Kensington videos, and that was a deal I made with my mom. And but then when things started after like the vaccinations rolled out, I started going back, and that's when I was going back there like once a week, and it was getting crazy, and I just realized these politicians don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about these people. The city council person named Maria Sanchez, who was the city council person of Kensington during COVID, didn't have an office for the residents of Kensington to go to if they had a problem. They had to call a phone number, and then somebody would call them back 2 days later. God forbid you needed something from your city council person right away. The guy who does my neighborhood, I think was David O. David O is not my city council person. But there's a guy in my neighborhood, not that far from my neighborhood, who's a city council person who has an office that was open during COVID. You just had to make appointments. But the people who lived in Kensington, the people who needed help from the government the most, had nowhere to go besides a phone number and a wait 2 days for a phone call. And I remember I went to my school and I looked at this parking lot, and I called up the city council person, and they called me back, and I said, I gotta talk to somebody at your office. Where is your office at? And they're like, we don't have one. And I was like, what the fuck? And like I'm not even in that district, and I'm so upset for the people in that district. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the people who live on Clementine Street, right? That little street after Allegheny Ave. There's a little tiny street near the pizza shop. It's not fair to those kids. There's kids that live on that block and they got to see crazy shit every day. I don't understand. I don't know why we're sacrificing these children. It just doesn't make sense. And it was only going to get worse with the old mayor. I don't know. I do know when I watch the Kensington live stream on YouTube. There's a live stream, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on that because it looks like certain areas are getting cleaned up, but I'm not sure if it's that time of the year where they clean up certain areas. Tents are moving around. I heard from some cops that shit might be getting back to normal soon. I never heard anything good from the cops. Most of the cops are like, this fucking mayor, this fucking district attorney. So maybe it's going to get better. I don't know. We just gotta. I hate that we have to wait and see, but if it's not getting better, I will be the first person to let you know because that's my angle on Kensington. The politicians who don't look out for these kids. I just don't get it, man. I just don't fucking get it. Your aunt lived on Emerald. I used to go to Conwell, so I used to go to school. There was two buildings. There was one building at Jasper and one building at Emerald. That's it. Wishart. Clementine. Clementine's right behind Conwell. Then yeah, you're right. Thank you. That's yeah. Gnomestead wrote something about a nonprofit focusing on affordable housing, and I don't think we there was this big protest in I think it was 2020. There was this big protest at a park on the Ben Franklin Parkway, and there was a homeless encampment inside this playground for months. There were months. It was a big news story, and these people camped out in the playground. And the way the mayor got the camp in to end is he made an agreement to build a tiny house village somewhere for affordable housing and blah 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 blah. And so it took a while, but they do have a tiny village of affordable housing somewhere in the northeast near the Pennypack Park. I'm not sure if it's built yet, but it's being built, or it was being built. And so I like sometimes I'll see people and they'll say, "Oh, protests don't do anything." That definitely did do something. It definitely did. You know, we got those tiny houses, but I do know that that tiny house village is built next to a prison where prisoners break out a lot. Like I think twice this year, prisoners have broken out. There's also a park and a shooting range. Like there's nothing really else there, so there wasn't really a reason for neighbors to bitch. I'm surprised we kind of caved into the people inside that encampment, because when I was walking around that encampment on the Parkway, it I wouldn't reward such bad behavior I was seeing. Oh, I think the letter streets are kind of bad too. Don't go fucking around on G Street. That's all I say. G Street. Don't go down any of the letter streets. That's I What's the street? What's it, Hilton? I think is it Hilton Street? What's that little tiny street right across the street from K&A? And there's always people passed out. Schiller Street. Maybe it's Schiller Street. Don't ever go down that fucking street. Don't ever go down that fucking street. It's so fucking sketchy. And you got the first like 50 yards of the block are people just passed out, and then the last 25 yards of the block are nothing but drug dealers. It's fucking scary. It's sketchy as shit. And then, you know, when they see you riding around with your little scooter and your camera. They lit up the homeless guy. Wasn't that G Street? Yeah. Um, Something else just happened on G Street. Oh, well, one of our viewers, one of his cousin got beat up down there. Um, he was having a problem with addiction. He got beat up and he got beat to death. Um, and he said it in the video I did yesterday. So I don't feel like I'm talking out of term here, but he said, you know, it was like he owed money to a drug dealer. So that's fucking crazy, man. Oh wait, why are we talking about the Mets? Taco Stacks. He wrote "Go Mets," and then James wrote "Mets" and laughed. I can't wait to talk about baseball. I hate the winter. I hate when I got to sit in. I'm going to the Flyers game tonight. We're going to hanging out with the Pandemic crew, which is going to be fun. One last thing about Andrew Callahan. If you watch his stuff on Channel 5 on YouTube, you'll always notice he kind of dresses like a dickhead. He wears like a shitty tie, like a 1970s jacket, and he always dresses kind of like a schmuck. It's part of the character, right? Or whatever. I don't know if it's a character. It's part of the gimmick. When he did his Kensington documentary, he wore a Mike Schmidt jersey. And that was a smart call. That just know that's how dangerous Kensington is. He didn't even do his gimmick. He wore a Phillies jersey. But I really think everybody should watch it. As a matter of fact, if you can watch it now, let me know what you think. I don't know what the solution is. And now that I think about it, I feel like we've been moving homeless homeless encampments full of drug addicts. We've been moving them around the city pretty much my entire life. Now that I think about it, it's just the drugs in the city are so potent. People are coming from all around the country. That's another great thing they talk about. People are like, "Oh, Philly, it's all Philly," and guy comes from Baltimore. Guy broke out of a drug rehab from Baltimore. His fucking arms blowing up to here. And he's like, the drugs they got in Kensington ain't like anything. And he's like, he's from Baltimore. He's like, we don't even have this trank shit here. I just say, you know, when I just say we stop making the trank. Who gives a fuck about horses? We'll do something else to sedate horses that doesn't affect human life, and we just make the making of that chemical, liquid or powder. You just make it illegal. Fuck horses. We gotta stop. Look, you can't help an addict from getting sober. I have I have my own demons with addiction, and you can't get sober unless you want to get sober, and uh, you can't get somebody. You can't just take them off Kensington Ave, put them in rehab, and have a happy ending. That's just not the way it works. People have to experience something to get them off the street. Another thing about this documentary they were talking about is when they shoot up with this trank, it eats away at their flesh, and it's non-repairable what they're doing to themselves. And most of the people we see on Kensington Ave with these giant infections and these bandages on their arms, they're going to be missing limb. They're either going to be dead or missing a limb. That's it. And a lot of these people are doing self amputation because if they don't stop the sore from spreading, it can get to their heart. So people are chopping off their own fucking limbs, and they're still getting high, and they're still getting high. So you can't just get them off the street to get them sober. They have to figure it out. I don't know how you get them to figure it out, but maybe some people are just lost causes, and you can't get them off the street. That's what the guy who watches the channel just lost his cousin. He would go down every so often. He would check on his cousin. He would use my videos to check on his cousin. If he saw his cousin in my videos, he would let me know. Oh, I saw my cousin. Now I don't have to go down there this week to look for him. But yeah, man, it's crazy down there. Thank you. Yeah, fuck horses. You're going to see Jeff Dunham tomorrow night? I'm sorry to hear that. Uh, I guess moving the problem around, what it does is it lowers the property value for a while. So where does it go next? That's the question. Do we keep it along the L tracks? Does it go towards Tioga? See, there's a spot. I could see it going around Kensington and Castor and Kensington and Erie, where North Catholic is. There really isn't a lot. They're redeveloping a lot of the vacant buildings. I think the old Kitty City warehouse is getting developed. But there's a lot of empty space back there. They could move up there, and then when it moves up there, it could maybe go up Tarsdale Ave or along the river. It's just going to be watching that documentary and hearing the number of bags being sold in the city. It's out of hand, and even if you make a few arrests, I think it's going to be an issue for a long time. So I don't know. But luckily for me, I don't have to solve the problem. I just have to yell about it, because that's all I can do. Mr. Beast did help. Mr. Beast, there is a video when Mr. Beast philanthropy, it's a tough word to say. on Mr. Beast's Good Deed channel. Philanthropy. Ooh, I can't say that word. Philanthropy. Philanthropic. So he has a channel where there's a guy who gives food to the needy families in Kensington. And Mr. Beast helped that guy get a lot of food. And now he's helping more people, not just in Philadelphia, but I think in New York too. He doesn't do any, I'm sure, no, I'm not going to say that. They do, I know they feed people. I talked to somebody who worked for that building. And they do feed people, homeless, drug addicts, and people who are poor residents in Kensington. So, but Mr. Beast helped a lot. You just don't hear about it. I don't know why you don't hear about it. But I remember I saw the video. Like, holy fuck, he's in Kensington. At Kensington and Allegheny. Philanthropy. Philanthropy. I don't like talking good. I like the way philanthropy. Know what it is? I can't spell. And I also can't talk. So some words like philanthropy, I would never dare spell. So, all right, listen, I got to get ready for the Flyers game. That's starting in 3 hours. I got to put the Christmas tree down, move the thing here. We're getting baby steps. We're getting close to getting the office secured. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't seen it today, I put out a video earlier today. It's about places on Delaware Avenue that existed 3 years ago that no longer exist, or places that changed names. I talk about the old Hooters on Delaware Ave. I talk about the apartments that a homeless person set on fire, and now we just have a foundation. It's an interesting video, so if you want to check that out. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I want to hit 50,000 subscribers by the All-Star game. Baseball All-Star, not hockey. That's like really soon. Hey, Cap, still in the hospital. Oh, man, that's horrible, Jane. It's always fun in 301. But today, nobody snores in 104 or something like that. You saw a guy banging a dog? I saw I saw a girl blow a dog once. I was at a party when I was a kid, and this girl was shit-faced drunk, and she fell down a flight of stairs, and this dog came over, and she started like blowing the dog. And it was me, it was like 6 people in the room. And we're like, we got to stop this, right? And then my friend Billy, who died, he's not here no more. He had to like, hey, get off my dog. So that's the story. So, yeah, that's some scary shit. So make sure you hit like and subscribe. And I'll